I can't tell you how honored I am again to have you here on my platform, on my channel. It's starting to become, I'm starting to get spoiled. I'm getting used to it.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
We just lost two kings in our music, Angola, Sembra, Kizomba music. And this is why I think I can't think of anyone better to help me out honor these two great guys who contributed so much for our culture. Today we're starting with Waldemar Bastos, right? So yeah. I'll give you the floor because I'm assuming this will take a while. There's so much to talk about them that I don't want to take much of your time. So please, Rui, tell me a little bit what you know about Waldemar Bastos.
Well, as you said, thank you for having me on your channel once again. We've been talking about doing something to honor, something very humble from our humble contribution to honor these two fallen icons of Angolan music. And it was so shocking because we lost them in a span of, I think, 2 days. 24. Like we had barely recovered from losing Waldemar Bastos, and then 2 days later we lost Kota Carlos Buriti. So it was very impactful because I think especially here in Angola, when there's sudden deaths, it's a little bit harder to process. I mean, in general, anybody, because nobody had any clue. Most people, I guess family members knew about it, but most people didn't know that Waldemar was suffering from cancer. I think most people didn't know that Carlos Buriti had, maybe I think I heard 2 or 3 heart surgeries recently. And these were not necessarily guys who were, young. So it was very hard, I think, for a lot of people to take those 2 impacts. One alone would be heavy enough. Taking 2 like that, and these were 2 artists, and I think that was very unique, that they really were loved by people, and that's something that I said when I interviewed Paulo Flores, which I think is quite unique about him. Almost, and that's rare. Every generation can relate to Carlos Buriti music, and almost every generation, if not all generations, can relate to Waldemar Bastos music. That's very rare because some musicians often have a time span. Once you go past your generation, it's very hard to get into the next generation. It's very hard for the next people, for the people coming, to truly appreciate it. And I could see, guys in their 30s, guys in their 20s, guys in their 40s, all lamenting. I saw, teenagers lamenting Carlos Buriti passing. So it was very. Yeah, it was tough. And I think the one for Carlos, for Waldemar had a particularity, which was the fact that he spent most of his career, most of his life actually overseas. And he was a son of Angola, and through and through Angolan. It doesn't get any more Angolan than that. And having him not spend, a good portion of his career, or spending most of his career overseas, I think a lot of people had the sense that, man, we could have had him more, we could have enjoyed him more, we could have seen him more, we could have listened more to his music. And every concert that he had here was sold out. That's how it's almost like bonga. They barely come to Angola, for various reasons, which we're not gonna necessarily touch upon here or address. But for them, every time they came to Angola, it was like a homecoming for them, of course, because both Waldemar Bastos and Bonga, they always think about Angola. They live overseas for I don't know how long. They always talk about Angola. They always take Angola and they pick Angola in their songs. And I think the people here also welcome them. It's like, the prodigal son, when he come home, was always very well received. So I think for Waldemar in particular, we got to enjoy Carlos Buriti on a regular basis. If you live here in Angola, you got to see him on a regular basis. Although over the last couple of years, I think maybe his age and health started to deteriorate. There were fewer public performances. But Waldemar was always very well received here. So it was a shock. What's to say about Waldemar Bastos, the late Waldemar Bastos? He was born in 1954, so 20 years prior to independence. His father was actually a nurse, right?
Wow.
And one of those people at that time that would do voluntary work across the whole country, across the entire country. So at that time, in the mid 50s, we had malaria, which we still have. Leprosy was a big deal, especially as you go deep into the interior, and sleeping disease. Yeah. So his father traveled with his mother and with Waldemar, all over the country.
Oh, wow.
So he ended up being born in Banza, Congo, which is the quintessential, capital of the Congo Kingdom. And that shaped a lot of his musical influence. He said that whenever he's performing with other African musicians, whenever he was performing, they always bow to him, because there's a belief that is from the Banza Congo that the most of the African music came from. So for him, was that thing never left him. But he left. It's funny. His father eventually moved to other cities in the country, but just being born there and spending the first years of his life hearing the sounds and the smells, the sights, everything in Banza Congo shaped him so much that it took him for the rest of his career. And everywhere he go, he was always very proud to say that I'm from Banza Congo. I'm from the source where most of the he said, I'll actually watch his I think it was his last or second last concert here in Angola, and he was very proud. He was on stage and he said it's from the guitars of Banza Congo that came. I think he said, I can't remember exactly if he said the world music, most of the world music, or all of the African music, because even the jazz and all these music genres that eventually went, all these music genres that went, all over to the rest of the world, you can probably trace it back to the Congo Kingdom. So yeah, he was extremely proud of that. He, his father, he started to play at age 6. His father caught him, playing with a guitar, and both father and mother realized very quickly at that time. And you can ask any artist, Angolan artist that was in that age. In that era, being a musician was a bad thing. If you're a parent and if you notice that your son or your daughter has an inclination for music, it's like, oh my God, it's like literally having a son who is, I don't know, a criminal, because for them it's like, oh geez, man, like I'm here hoping I'm gonna get a doctor, I'm gonna get a lawyer, an engineer, and this guy wants to do music. Of all things, he wants to do music. So music was perceived to be like an escape route if you didn't want to go to school, proper, academic route. So luckily for him, his father and her mother had the sensitive enough to figure out that was his true calling. So instead of doing what every African parent usually does, which is whooping your ass, or forcing you in a certain direction, they actually gave him a guitar. So his first guitar wasn't actually the acoustic guitar. Anybody who knows a little bit of Waldemar knows that he was known, throughout his career to be known for being an extremely competent acoustic guitar player. But that wasn't his first guitar. So he started actually with electrical guitar. And he said his first influence would be, do you know who was his first influence as a guitarist? The Jackson 5.
Really?
Yes, the Jackson 5. Of all people, the Jackson 5 was his first influence as a guitarist. He eventually moved on later on to the acoustic guitar. which he was always present with him. You know, almost every photo that you see
Yeah.
on his album covers is playing. That guitar was with him anywhere he wanted, anywhere he went. So he played both. So he spent, you know, and then Angola becomes independent in 1975. He spent a few years here. In the 80s, he actually moved to Brazil. I assume probably because, you know, he wanted to continue his career as a musician. Maybe Angola didn't have the right political and social environment, even economic environment, to actually fuel or, you know, motivate musicians. So a lot of the same way that you have, you know, a lot of guys leaving to go to Portugal to make his own music in the mid and late 80s, some people also left in the early 80s. So he left in the 80s and he went to Brazil. And that also shaped a little bit his influence, you know, the bossa nova type of feel of songs. Some people even call some of his music Afro pop. And his first album, the song that we're going to do today, because I think, you know, from all his repertoire, which was really remarkable, Velha Chica is one that probably became, you know, I think every musician has a career song, right? One that defined them, a trademark. Like I always tell the man, like say, you can have, you know, 5, 10 golden albums. I don't think you're ever gonna make a song better than Melkota. You know, that just define your career.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
It was very
and
fun.
I think this song that we're going to translate depicts, I think, what for Angolans at least, what became his trademark, you know, his identity, the music that defined. If you know, if ask any Angolan, you know, any song or the lyrics of any song, and this one probably is the one that best represented. In this first album that came out in 1982, he actually had duets with, you know, Martinho da Vila, the great Martinho da Vila. But one thing that he kept is he didn't want Brazilian music to sort of take over the musicality of the album.
Yeah.
So although he enjoyed, you know, the duets with great Brazilians, he had, you know, the people playing the instruments are not Angolan, they're all instruments. But he preserved that. He made sure that the essence, the element, you know, the identity of Angolan music was present in the album, although it was being made in Brazil with Brazilian instrumentalists, duets with Brazilian artists. So this song really became iconic. There's so many versions. He has a version with Dulce Ponte, who's a great fadista. I think probably the version which I wouldn't say it's the best, but I think it's really, you can probably cut the emotion in his song when he's singing with a knife, because he was the first Angolan to play with the London Symphony, Harmonic Symphony. Yeah, first Angolan to play full concert.
Wow.
And that concert actually became one album called Classics of My Soul. So the version, the song is called Velha Chica. Velha just means, Velha is a respectful word that we use for, you know, somebody who's you know, older than us, our elders. Usually we use it to describe or say, you know, minha velha, minha mãe, right? My mother. You can also say my grandmother, right? So minha velha or meu velho, it's you know, one can see it as a sign of endearment. And I think it was Bonga in his concert on Sunday. He said,
I was going to say exactly that.
Yeah. On Sunday, Bonga said, in here, value or old is bad, right?
Yeah.
Where we come from culturally is completely different. You know, value is good, old is good. It means that, you know, you've earned the.
Yes.
Exactly. So you've earned that respect. You've earned, you know, when people bow to you, when people call you mais velho, or minha velha, meu velho, it means that you've reached a certain level of emotional maturity, of endurance, of experience, wisdom, that, you know, can only come with time and experience. That you can't buy that. So that's one of those things that, you know, age gives to you. And Velha Chica, the expression Velha, doesn't mean, you know, oh, Chica is old. No. One interesting thing about the song, which for me speaks a lot about his, you know, he was such a spiritual guy. He was so in tune with his country and his roots, where he came from. One of his most, for me, most, you know, very touching quotes is when one of his songs, he called, the title of the song is Angola, My Girlfriend. Yeah. And in the lyrics, he says, don't ask me when I'm going back, because I actually never left. And he was so in,
deep.
Yeah, and he was so in tune with, he had such self-awareness, although he spent so much time overseas. This song, you know, he's dedicating to his grandmother. Her name is actually her name was Angela. But yeah, her name was actually Angela, but he changed the song. The original name of the song was Velha Angela, which is the name of his grandmother, who, by the way, was born very close to your born, from Lubito, Benguela.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Everything.
So yeah, his late grandmother came from where you came from, but he decided to change from Angela to Chica. Do you know why?
No,
because
Chica is probably the most common name, I would say, probably. No.
Yeah, it's along those lines. He felt that, he probably felt that Angela wasn't a song that was, because of the lyrics, and we'll go through the lyrics. He probably felt like there's a mismatch between the lyrics and the name of my grandmother. So he changed the song to a name that is more representative of the typical Angolan grandmother, Chica, Velha Chica. So everybody could relate to the song, instead of having, you know, a very almost Portuguese sound. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like Angela is probably a little bit more Portuguese-like, is more European-like. So he had that awareness to change the song. And personally, well, we can speculate. I don't think the song would be the icon that it was if he had kept the original name, Velha Angela, instead of changing to Velha Chica. So this is Velha Chica, the one that we're going to listen today. Anything that you want us to talk about?
No, I just wanted to, you know, talk a little bit about him.
Go ahead.
Because we have all, I guess we felt, I don't know, there's a little bit of almost embarrassment from not celebrating him more. I mean, because the other ones, like, you know, even Bonga and Carlos Buriti, even though he passed, I felt that we honored him in life, right? I don't think Waldemar Bastos got that same respect that he deserved.
Yeah.
And so there's,
I think it was late. I think it was very late. Personally, I think it was very late.
There's a little bit of guilt here, almost. And this is why I wanted to you know, do this a little bit. It's almost like, okay, it's just a shame, and it's hard for us, right, to talk about this and to not get emotional, because this is so personal, especially people who get sensitive about these things. Not everyone does. Not every Angolan is this way, but for those who do, this is it. This is what I wanted to do, and this is the perfect song. This is the song I wanted to translate most, but I don't think I wanted to do alone. Let's put it that way.
He eventually got, I think maybe 2 years ago, you know, the new president. You know, we have a president now for the past, I don't know, maybe 3 years or so now.
Yeah.
The new president decided to give, you know, order, you know, national order of merit, you know, some sort of knighthood to some people who haven't, some people who haven't reached or taken the name of Angola far overseas, and, you know, in whatever field, sports, culture, arts. And Waldemar, if I'm not mistaken, was one of those. But I think one of the saddest quotes that he's ever, uttered from his own mouth is when he came in December 2018, and he said in a concert, which was very emotional for him and for everybody in the room. He said, "This is the first time that I sing free in my own country, in my own land." And whatever issues somebody may have had with him or whatever. I mean, Angola, the war ended in 2002. There's absolutely no reason why, if somebody was holding some sort of a grudge, I don't think 16 years to give him his due, pay tribute to him, pay homage to him, and for him, I think he felt that for so many years, and for him to finally say, this is the first time that I sing free in my own land. That's heavy for somebody who was so Angolan, so much into his own roots and into his own country. I think I was very heavy. So hopefully we'll make justice. Hopefully somehow, by sharing his legacy, his name with the people who follow your page and have an interest in, and we're all grateful for these people who watch these things and they don't just care about dancing. We're very thankful. Even if it's only one person, even if it's only 10 people, even if it's only 100 people, we are very thankful for each single person who takes an interest in our culture, in our music, in our dances, beyond just the dancing aspect, the festival aspect. So hopefully, in doing this, we'll people who didn't know Waldemar, how great Waldemar Bastos was for us, hopefully they will get into it. Hopefully they will listen to his music. Hopefully they'll go to Spotify. They'll go to iTunes and they'll listen to his songs and they're like, oh my God, this guy was actually very, 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 very good. His albums are my go-to albums. If I just want to relax my mind, some of his albums, Classics of My Soul, I think is the one with the London, it's the London Symphony Orchestra. And I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, you lived in London, you lived in the UK, you gotta be somebody special, have, some serious talent in order for the London Symphony Orchestra to invite you to have a concert with them. And I think it was so good, it was such a perfect match that it became an album, Classics of My Soul.
I came from a time even in Portugal, our artists didn't even had a platform like Casino do Estoril, which will be the biggest houses here in Lisbon to perform. So when you talk to me about London Symphony Orchestra, it's a huge deal because not even in Portugal, little Portugal, we could get that kind of recognition to get, concerts of that level in these type of houses, or venues. So yes, it's a huge deal, and I couldn't be more proud to be Angolan.
It truly speaks volumes of how much respect, and people who truly appreciate music, they will appreciate your art, regardless of whatever political issues you may have here or there. Your art is always going to be there. And I think this is validation that you can't buy. Being invited, or playing with the London Symphony Orchestra, you can't buy that. It's an earn. You earn that. Absolutely. You earn that thing. So we're going to do Velha, Chica.
Sure.
Antigamente, a velha Chica vendia cola e xixi. noite, a velha Chica vivia colar e gengibre. E lá pela tarde, ela lavava a roupa do patrão importante. E lá pela tarde, ela lavava a roupa do patrão importante. E nossos miúdos lá na escola perguntavam a vovó Chica qual era a razão daquela pobreza, daquele nosso sofrimento.
Okay, so this is the first verse. So Velha Chica, the context of this song is obviously pre-independence, okay, and it will make sense later. And he says, antigamente que a Velha Chica vendia cola e gengibre. So he's talking about what his grandmother used to do for a living initially. So she used to sell cola y gengibre. You know, it's like a snack. It's very common that people have it here when you have funerals. If somebody died and you have people in the house. Gengibre is just ginger. I don't know how cola is, but they usually go hand in hand.
It's a root. My grandmother.
Yeah, it's a root, exactly. So they go hand in hand for some reason.
They must together, yes.
Yes, so they go hand in hand. It's almost like when you have a shot of tequila, yes, and then you have the lemon and the salt. So cola and gengibre always go together. And he says, so her grandmother used to sell that in the morning, and then in the afternoon, she was a maid. So she would wash the clothes of somebody important. Here is an allusion, most definitely, to a white colonizer. Somebody who probably had many employees in the house to cook, clean, wash the clothes, iron. So ela era lavadera. She was the one that did the clothes for this big, important white man. So she would sell this stuff in the morning. Clothes. So it just shows how, that time life wasn't easy for the people during the colonization, the colonial era, because probably people had to have two jobs just to try to make that ends meet. Yeah. And then she said, and we, the kids at school, we would ask Velha Chica, or Grandma Chica, what was the reason of that poverty? I think kids, when you go to school, you start to have a certain awareness of your surroundings, right? You know who the rich kids are, you know who the poor kids are, if you live in a good neighborhood or not. So people start to become a little bit more socially aware of the conditions, and the kids asking her, hey, Vovó Chica or Velha Chica, what is the reason for our poverty, right? What is the reason for our suffering? What is the reason for our suffering? What is the reason for this poverty? So these are the kids in school asking her. And this is what she says.
Qual era a razão daquela pobreza, daquele nosso sofrimento?
So this is what she tells the kids.
Não falar política, não falar política, não falar política. Não falar política, não falar política, não falar política.
So that's the iconic answer that she gave to the kids when she says, "Hey kiddo, don't speak about politics. Because if you are, you know, if you're a kid during the colonial era, you had to be careful what you say, because using the wrong words, you know, saying something that could be perceived in a certain way, that alone would be enough for you to go to jail, or your parents to go to jail, or somebody, you know, suffering the consequences. So she says to the kids, "Hey, kiddo, don't speak about politics. Hey, kiddo, don't speak about politics." And this expression
Just
was
this sentence
so,
alone.
yes, yes,
It
it became an expression in the Angolan vocabulary
was
until today. Until today. I mean, your parents at some point, you know, if you say something
oh
controversial,
my God, yeah.
sometimes doesn't even need to be related to, you know, traditional or conventional politics. You know, let's say you're complaining about musicians not getting enough recognition. Your grandma, your mom will say, "Feminina não fala política," right? And it became such an iconic expression. And I think that's really the measure. When you're a legend, this is the type of thing that does make you, you know, even more legend. That's what cements your place. You know what it is to have an expression that becomes part of the vocabulary. People don't tell, you don't need to tell any parent, any grandparent, don't need to tell your kid, you know, "Oh, I don't want you to get into controversial matters. I don't want you to," you know, they don't need to explain and over explain to you. All they need to say, everybody will understand exactly what they mean. They say, you know, "Don't talk about this, don't get involved in this. I don't want you to get in trouble." That's another way of saying, "I don't want you to get in trouble."
That's right.
Yeah, "I don't want you to get in trouble." So that's what she's telling the kids from school, because she has that awareness that, you know, you guys are you guys are too young to probably understand, and two, if you really understand, you might get in trouble, and I don't want you two guys to suffer any consequences.
Ela sabia, mas não dizia a razão daquele sofrimento. Ei, tu, mas a velha Chica, embrulhada nos pensamentos. Ela sabia, mas não dizia a razão daquele sofrimento. Senhor, fala política, não fala política, não fala política. Menino, não fala política, não fala política, não fala política.
So here he says, you know, although Velha Chica was telling them, "Do not talk about this, do not talk about politics," she said, you know, she was wrapped in her thoughts, and she knew exactly what was the reason for that suffering, but she wouldn't tell us. So she was wrapped in her thoughts, but yeah, she wouldn't tell us.
But
and then he goes again.
And it's crazy how a sentence represents so much, right? Because it's talking about oppression, it's talking about you know, colonialism,
the humiliation, being under colonization. It's humiliating, because you had second-class citizens.
When you can't even ask about the reason of your own suffering, and you get shut down by your own grandmother to say, just talking about your suffering, just accept and be grateful for what you have, because talking about it can even get even more. I mean, there's so many layers, and this is it with our music, right? This is it with our artists. They have so many layers that it humbles me every single time, and I'm like, I have to talk about this. I have to do something. I can't just let this get past like this. So it's just beautiful.
So that's as you rightly said, you know, it's and I think it speaks it's another way. It's probably a way of African parents to show love. Yeah, it's a way. It's a weird way of showing love, because when they tell you "não fala política," don't get into politics, don't get into controversial stuff, it's not because they want to cut your freedom of speech. It's not because they want to impose what your thoughts, or they want to shape your thoughts. So it's because it's because they love you so much that they truly believe that if you don't know certain things, actually better for you. Yeah, you'll be better off not knowing certain things, because I don't want you to suffer emotionally. I don't want you to suffer, because if you start to understand what's going on during colonization, second-class citizenship, people being called indigenous versus assimilated, people going to jail, people disappearing, exactly. The class stratification, the race stratification, not having
culture.
Exactly. Like completely stripping people of their identity. Your language being called dog language. You not being able to truly being a full human being, as you should, because it's a basic human right.
To be called,
to have that free.
Called illiterate if you wear your own cloth. This is what you
exactly.
She was illiterate.
Exactly.
She was an ignorant, basically, almost.
Yeah.
All that in that one sentence. In that one sentence.
Exactly.
Everything's there in that one sentence.
Yeah. All there in exactly. Gemini não fala política. Like, it's basically saying, don't go there.
Yeah.
Please don't go there. You're better off, don't go there. Just forget about carry on with your life, because I guarantee you, if you know about it, and that's why they say, that's why he says, Waldemar said, she knew the reason of that suffering, but she wouldn't tell us, because ultimately that's her way of protecting those kids. The truth hurts, right? And I always tell,
revolt, right?
Exactly. And that causes emotional damage, that causes anger, and it can get you in trouble. You can think that you're going to do something, and then you go and you go to jail, or you get killed by the Portuguese police, secret police, which was very, very efficient, and was notorious for being brutal. And I always tell people, I think the difference between, like, the French, the Belgian, they were very, very violent in the country that they were physically oppressive. The Portuguese were also physically oppressive, but I think the main violence that the Portuguese caused in their colonies, at least in the case of Angola, and you can probably make the same case for other Palops countries, is the cultural stripping, is the identity stripping. I think that was so violent that until today, you still feel those, you still suffering from those stigmas, those biases, etc. So yeah.
E o tempo passou, e a velha Chica, só uma velha ficou. Ela somente fez uma cubata, o tempo dizia, e o tempo passou, e a velha Chica, só uma velha ficou. Ela somente fez uma cubata, o tempo dizia, menino, não fala política, não fala política, não fala política. Menino, não fala política, não fala política, não fala política. Mas
so here you can hopefully, the sound is loud enough for people to distill the emotion in his voice, and he says, so time went by, and Velha Chica, and here he uses Velha in a different way, right? Now he is referring to Velha as in age-wise, He's no longer referring to say as a, you know, as a sign of endearment. And he says, Velha Chica, the old Chica became even older. So time went by, and all she got eventually was to build a shack. And then he says a shack with, and this is where, you know, you really have to be, you have to put in the context. Teto de Zinco. I don't know if some people probably have seen it in Africa and other developing countries. In the villages, sometimes for your roofing, you know, you don't have tiles, you don't have, you know, expensive, you know, see-through glass, etc. So the cheapest thing that you can have in a shack, it's zinc roofing. So they're like sheets of zinc. You know, it's like a silverish in like grayish, silverish material, and it just layers that you put on top of the other. So they wavy. It's almost like they have waves, and you put one on top of the other, and that's how you finish the house. That's how you conclude the house.
It's the same material as the cans, right? It's the same material.
Exactly. Zinc. Yeah. So zinc roofing is, you know, the cheapest thing that you can have on the roof of your house. And here he uses that to show that, you know, she went by, she lived, she sold stuff in the morning, she was hustling in the morning, hustling in the afternoon, and she got older and older and older. And that's really the problem of, you know, being under colonialism when all your resources are being explored. You know, you go through your life and you see, you know, the colonizers getting richer and either becoming very rich in country or sending all this wealth overseas, and you're the owner of the land. You don't get to enjoy that. You don't get to have a decent house. So he's saying, Velha Chica ficou mais velha. You know, it just you know, it's a metaphor for she grew older and older, you know, and she grew older, and despite having worked so hard for so long in her life, the only thing that she could eventually show for, you know, like when people get in their 60s and their 70s, they usually have, you know, in normal, I won't say normal countries, I'll say in developed countries, they'll have a, you know, a huge pension, they'll probably have a house by the lake, you know, let's say you have maybe one apartment here, one house there, you have cars, you have a pension. So there's something that you show for. So you work for so long and you have something that you can say, hey, you know, I'm retired now, I'm old, but this is what I accumulated over my life from a material wealth standpoint. And he's saying all that she can manage to get was a freaking shack, and they couldn't even afford a proper roofing, or just zinc roofing, because zinc roofing, one, when it gets hot, is really, really hot. And you know, you don't have AC in a village. If you have a shack, you don't have AC, right? So it gets really, really hot. If it's raining, it doesn't have, you know, the right tightness. So you're probably gonna get water through. And because it's zinc, because of its properties as a metal, it corrodes very easily, right? So zinc, it's almost like if you want to humiliate somebody, let's say, not humiliate, but if you want to make fun of somebody's house, you know, if you point out that they have zinc roofing, that means you can't afford anything better than that. Yeah. So here, and you can probably feel as you're singing this song live in London, that his emotion is getting more and more and more, because he could probably assume, you know, relate and imagine the suffering of his grandmother, having worked so hard, yet all she could do, all she could show for, all she could amass over her career as, you know, as selling ginger and those roots and cleaning the washing the clothes for the big important white man, you know, her pension was just one shack with zinc roofing. So I think that's where is probably the most emotional part of his singing. Hopefully people can distill that from his voice.
Já não lembro lutas do sofrimento. Mas quem vai agora? O rosto daquela senhora, daquela sintomas. Já não lembro lugar do sofrimento. Do sofrimento. E ela agora já diz: menino,
let me stop here. And then he says, now if you look at her face now, all you see, because he's talking about, she got older and older and older, and he says, if you look at her, all you can see on her face is wrinkles of the suffering, right? Because you get wrinkles if you suffer, the same way that you get gray hair if you care too much about things, if you think too much about something, if something stresses you too much. And he says, if you look at her face, all you can see is wrinkles as a result, as a consequence of suffering for so long, right? And it's probably not necessarily physical suffering, is working so hard, is not having freedom, not having the ability to provide what you hoped, what you wished for. And then he says, and I think that's probably the most poignant and the really sad part, he says, now she only says one thing. Yeah, she only says one thing. All she says is one thing. And let's see what.
Oh no, I lost you for a little bit.
So all she says now is, hey kiddo, I can die now because I've seen Angola independent. Yeah. So I can die. I can literally die now. Yeah, because I've seen my country independent. So it's almost like all she was waiting is to see her land free, to see the freedom. And then, it's like the same thing that sometimes you say, well, oh, I have seen a concert by artist XYZ, or somebody, my favorite artist gave me a shout out. I can die now, like for me, I always say, the day I shake Zinedine Zidane's hand, I'll be able to, I can die after that. So yeah, that's what she says to him, Shemininu. When I die, I want to see Angola in peace. When I die, I want to see Angola in peace. And then she says, now I can die because I've actually seen Angola independent.
That's beautiful.
So, yeah.
Like, almost like...
That's Velha Chica for you.
And he gets me every time. Yeah, it's you can actually feel the emotion on that. I think on that particular show,
verse.
he gave his
verse.
all.
Yeah.
You can literally feel the
singing
on his voice. He literally was singing with his soul, probably grateful for being there, for having that as an artist. And so it gives you goosebumps and it touches you. So it's beautiful how she says, even though I only have how do you say say in English?
Okay.
Teto de zinco. What do you say in English? The
Zinc roofing.
yeah.
Roofing.
All she asked was for that. No, all she has is that, but all she wanted actually was independence. So she didn't even dream to have a bigger house or to have the same lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. Very good point. Very good point. Yeah.
To see her grandchildren with a different life that she had. That's how I read it. It's
just a country in peace, a country independent country and in peace.
A country where the children can ask why are they poor. At least let me answer my own
exactly
question, right?
Exactly. And a country that hopefully kids don't need to be told
don't talk about it because this,
you know what I mean, like
which
a country where you can hopefully ask that question.
For those who study or grow up in Europe or in the West, it's totally the opposite. We are here, you're taught to fight for your rights, right?
Very good point, actually. Very good point.
You are taught to stand up for yourself and to not let especially us Black people, we are taught to fight and to have someone telling you don't talk about it, don't ask questions, it is what it is. It just it puts things into perspective and it humbles it humbles me every time, and it teaches me so much about us. It's a shame that we still don't know enough. We're just picking up pieces and do it like a Lego, I guess, a little bit, and figuring out things. And I'm just so honored to actually lived, to actually enjoy his legacy, to know that I actually have met him, not like know him personally, but I've seen in a couple he used to date someone I knew. So it's just amazing. I feel very honored. Wow.
And I think it's so this thing of it's such a generational thing that really went from generation to generation, and until today, you can be living in the country with the most freedom in the world, where you can say anything. The moment your parents see that you're on Facebook, you're steering some controversy, that's the thing you will say.
Exactly.
It's amazing. It's
second nature to us. When I started this channel, Rui, I can tell you that's exactly what my mom told me. When I said, "Oh, I'm gonna start,"
really, wow,
hand on my heart, my daughter, on my daughter's life, that's exactly what she said. Wow. The first thing she said is like, "Be careful what you say." And every time she translates me songs, she says, "I don't want this," because she still has that ingrained of, we don't talk about these things. And I'm like, "Mom, it's okay to talk about." She's like, "No, I don't want you to talk about. Just do that." She thinks I'm translating songs about popular songs. That's what I tell her I'm doing. Because if she knows that this is what I do, she would be worried, and I want to protect her too, because I understand we have to be respectful. Hopefully, I think this is what some of the idea with this channel as well is, to understand some of our behaviors. Like us as Angolans.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't be 4 kids. Your parents, your Angolan parents are always gonna tell you. You can have 3, 4 kids. They're always gonna tell you, don't talk about politics.
Don't talk about politics. Don't ask.
Let me just put it this way. I'm glad my mom doesn't see.
I'm constantly dodging mine. Constantly. I have to constantly block her to things and do things in different ways. I have to, because she's so worried about me getting in trouble, and I keep saying to her, there is no danger, I'm not doing anything wrong, I'm just talking about music. But music is
Yeah,
Oh, yes. Oh, well, I can't tell you how grateful I am to have you helping me out and, putting in words.
my pleasure.
Sometimes I can't do it myself. I feel, so it's really, really a true honor to have you helping me out. Thank you so much. I know, for those who don't know, it's past midnight now. So on a Friday night, I'm sure Rui
No
has a
worries.
little bit more interesting things to do. So I'm grateful for taking the time.
No, I think we owe that to Valdemar, and
Absolutely.
we'll do Carlos Buriti as well. And we have to get into habit, all of us. I think everybody, every time you lose this eye over the years, and sometimes basic health insurance. So those people tried to gather money to have him have treatment overseas or get treatment overseas. It was already too late. Let's get into the habit, for us who can do something, even if it's not material. Let's honor these people while they're alive. Let's give them. One of NBA players said one thing when Chadwick Boseman died. He said, "Let's get into the habit of giving people flowers when they're alive." Huh?
Wow. Yeah, indeed. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't know
Let's
how.
let's get it. Let's get into the habit of giving people flowers when they're alive.
Yes, that's
We
a,
often we often forget we often forget about that. Huh?
yeah, we absolutely. For those ones who are watching this on YouTube, leave a flower. If you're watching this on Facebook as well, leave a flower for us for Waldemar Bastos. Let's get in that habit. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Rui. I hope people know how grateful we are for taking the interest in our culture. Like Rui said in the beginning, if it's two, three, four, five,
Yes.
10 people, it doesn't matter. We're just grateful that you're here, that you
Yeah.
take the interest, that you took your time. So just wanted to, this is why I make this channel free. It's because I think, we just want to honor our artists and what they contributed to the country we have today and why we feel so proud to be Angolan. And yes, and I think like music and lyrics to us was healing. Music to you guys is healing as well. So yeah, thank you so much for your time. Please
Thank you,
subscribe to
Tanya.
the channel. Thank you,
Thank
Rui.
you. Thank
Subscribe
you.
to
Thank
the
you.
channel. If you think
Thank
someone
you.
will benefit from watching this, please share it with your friends, share it with your social media networks. Activate the little bell on the top so you can have notifications for next time. You're more than welcome to donate to the channel if you wish. I will put the link, and I will also put the link. Please follow Rui channel, University of Kizomba, on Facebook. He now also has a channel on YouTube, which is also putting quality music out there. Be responsible when you share, when you search for music. Make sure that you support the right channels. So take responsibility on that. Support the artists as well. So go and like their pages. When I mean artists, I mean the singers. Okay. I don't
And
mean.
make sure, if whenever you have time, whether it's on Spotify, whatever digital platform you do, it's not gonna be most of Waldemar Basso's music is not gonna be your typical kizomba or samba music.
No.
But if you're a true lover of music, you cannot not like his music.
Yeah.
If you have time, check for classics of my soul. And whether you're doing dishes, whether you're taking a shower, whether you're
Going
on
for a run.
driving to work, going for a run, meditation session, whatever you're doing, please. That's the minimum. That's the minimum we can do.
I will
May,
put
may his uh, may his soul rest in
rest in peace.
peace,
Amen.
and may his name live on, his legacy, and may he inspire somebody to continue his amazing work.
Yes. That's it on that note. Thank you so much. Have a good night. Thank you, Rui. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thanks.
My pleasure.